it's Joy, and today, as you saw the title of this, we're going to be diving into a topic that I want to broach very gently as I can. However, I want to do it very respectfully, but I think it's important to talk about. And so please understand, I really hope my intention is felt with this video. I mean the utmost respect for anybody who might be going through what Lainey is going through, who might be in the process of figuring out their gender and all of those issues. I want you guys to know my opinion and my thought is always do whatever is right for you, as long as you're not hurting yourself and other people. Do whatever is right for you. So this isn't my take on, gender issues as a whole. This is a specific instance on some possibilities of some psychological things I'm seeing going on with. Sorry, I had to edit Kai. Things I'm seeing going on with Kai. Now, the first thing I want to talk about as I'm starting this video, first of all, if you haven't seen my other 3 videos, go check those out. This one may not make as much sense. So there's part 1 where I kind of go over the last couple years and what I think about what's happened and Chris Hansen and all that. Then there is a part 2 all about, is Onision actually innocent of any crimes and the things he's being accused of? And then my part 3, which you can see, deals with Kai specifically and talks about whether or not Kai is innocent in this situation. So make sure and go check those out, because I think I have, I followed this very intensely for about a year or so, and I'd had, information revolving back and forth. And then the last couple years, I knew some of it because I know it became a big story and a big topic. People had kept saying, I got to come back now, do my comeback. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready. I was still physically fixing myself and processing everything that had happened and several other things going on. So I knew I needed to be physically better before I came back to talk about this. And I never really intended to come back and talk about it, but I've really been having fun on this channel, and I've been having fun hanging out with you guys. And I'm just trying to talk about things that I feel passionate about and things I can give good insight about, and trying to do it within respect to everybody involved. So I want to go ahead and say this because there's been some confusion in the comments. And I don't reference the comments too much, but I do want to say, if anybody hears me misgender or say the wrong name, please forgive me in advance. I apologize. It is not intentional. I have memory issues. And I saw this interesting comment. It's like, you have memory issues, but you remembered to say that you're not going to remember. So it sounds like it's selective memory. And here's the thing, to people who don't have memory issues or haven't been around people who are chronically sick, I get it. Or if you're young and you don't have issues, I get it. When I was young, I'm not saying this about all young people, but back in my day, when I was young, I had a lot of judgments on why are older people this way. And then as I got older, I'm like, oh, things don't work as well at all. So not only is age working against me, but I still have a lot of memory issues. It's much better. Oh, it's worlds better than what it was. But there's still a lot. And so what we're talking about is me remembering to try to give respect versus completely changing all of my speech patterns when I've known this person to be one way for so long, and just remembering to change like in speech patterns that have been ingrained in me since I was a baby. Do you know what I mean? So it's very, very different. I'm saying this because I want you guys to know I mean the utmost respect. I think we should all try to be compassionate with one another. So if somebody wants to be referred to as by something, we all try to be as compassionate and understanding and respectful. And yet if somebody's ill and they're trying, I think we should recognize that. So I just want you to be aware. And if people want to be upset with me, that's fine. I also know this person is Lainey because that's how I spoke about them, just so you are aware. So if I go back and forth between he, she, or Lainey, or Kai, or husband, or wife, it really isn't intentional. I'm trying. There's only so much this body and this brain can do at this point in time. Hopefully I'll continue to get better. But, and I'm not upset with people who don't get it, because until I got sick, I didn't get it. I'd be like, it's not that hard. And you're right, unless you've got something physically wrong with you, or maybe you're a bit older and things don't work the same way. It is tough. Getting old is tough. They don't teach you this stuff in school. They really don't. If anybody curious, I'm 36 going on 37. So I am up there, or I feel up there. But okay, so let's go ahead and let's dive into this. So I kind of want to talk about some of, I'm almost doing it again, Kai's psychology. Also with pronouns, I'm going to try to remember somebody in the comments and said this, and it was a really great comment. And so thank you, girl, whoever that was. I'm going to try to remember just to refer to Kai as Kai with pronoun, because that's the easiest way for me to, but I'm going to forget. I know I'm going to forget. I'm going to try though. So with Kai, here's what I wanted to talk about. There are a lot of things in that situation that don't make sense. And one thing I've really been going over is Kai a victim or is Kai a villain? And I've kind of come to the conclusion I think it's a little bit of both. Actually, I think it's a lot of bit of one and some of the other. I think Kai is definitely a victim to Onision, unfortunately. Whether or not whether or not he recognizes that, I don't know. It's not for me to say. However, there are some things I do want to bring up about people who have gender identity or transgender issues. So as most of us know, we started off with her being named Taylor and her name being Lainey or Laney-bot. And that's how we knew her. So she and Onion, they met in 2012. And she was just, I believe she was barely 16. He talks to him right on the line or under and then waits and skirts around the laws and moves to different states for a while. He likes him young. I don't get it because in my mid to late 20s, I would have had nothing in common with a teen. I think about it now, I'm 37. I wouldn't even have something in common with a 25-year-old if I'm being honest. So I'm looking at this going, I feel like the only thing this could be is a physical attraction. Not to say that Kai doesn't have physical, not to say that there aren't great attributes about Kai, but when you're that young, you're not a functioning, developed person to even know who you are. So it's hard for me to even understand what the actual attraction was, either that his mind is stuck as a teenager or it's all a physical control. And I'm at the point, I do think that there are some maturity issues where mentally to some degree, but he's also very, Onision's also very intelligent. So I think it's a combination of a few maturity issues versus the control. And that's what I want to bring up. And those are the points that I'm going to hit. And I kind of want to show that with some evidence so you guys know what I'm talking about. Now you might ask about the maturity issues. So here's where I see that stand with Onion. One of the really bad side effects about success being too young is that many times you can get trapped where you get successful. More so what I'm referring to is entertainment. In the academic field, it's not as important or it's not as much. But even there, you can have issues. You can, when you're younger, to get all of that attention and money and praise and all of that in any capacity, at any amount, that can be very difficult to deal with. And a lot of ego can be built and a lot of issues and then coping mechanisms from it. And a lot of bad habits can be created. And because you've become so inundated and then feel entitled to all that attention and energy, you can carry a lot of that for the rest of your life, or especially in entertainment, you can feel like you are trapped in the box and you have to be the person that gets all the attention and love. Because at the end of the day, as human beings, here's what we crave. We crave love and attention. And when I say attention, I think a lot of people, where they're just, they just want attention anywhere. I'm saying that I think as human beings, we are social creatures. We crave love and we crave connection with one another. I think people can sometimes mix that up for attention. They're kind of like, okay, any energy will do. Just feed me energy for the black holes I have in myself that I haven't filled. So when you get successful at a young age, you can get, I think, mentally and emotionally trapped where you are. And then you're scared to actually break out of that and grow as a person because, well, this is what got you the attention, praise, love, and then money. Because this is the other part about our society. I now have this thought that so many issues boil down to poverty. So many issues boil down to poverty, keeping people in poverty. So having that money is not just the materialistic aspect. For people who've been through hardship, there's a big poverty mindset that can come in and that stays there. So for instance, I've had times where I've had a lot of money and I've noticed that I do this weird thing where I kind of hoard food. And let me explain. So like if I were to go to a restaurant and I have leftovers, I'm going to keep them in the fridge for 2 weeks until I absolutely have to throw it out, even if I know I'm not going to eat it. Does that make sense? And that's always like, it's been an issue with roommate. He's really helped me with that. Or because I know what it's like to not have food, right? Or I'll oversave a bunch of mustard packets. Can't do ketchup right now, but I can do some mustard. Certain things like that. It comes from that place of like, I know what it's like to have nothing, and I know how quickly you can get there. So I think that's what's going on with him. Now, here's what I find interesting about Kai. So Kai got with Onision when was very young, when Kai was very young. You're not a fully formed person. Honestly, I would say until your 30s, you're figuring out who you are, even into your 30s. I think mid-30s, 40s, you start to feel a lot more settled. But I also think that's why a lot of times in the late 20s, early 30s, people have that midlife crisis because all of a sudden, I think they have these, even if they're not aware of it, there are these instinctual realizations of the things I haven't done, the things I haven't tried, the things they want to do. And either they break out and try to do some of those things, or they'll do weird things like go and spend a bunch of money on a car they don't need or maybe can't afford. And so they start trying to fulfill these holes of these kind of instincts that come up in us that say there were things you wanted to do and you didn't, and now you're getting to your halfway point. I think that's kind of what happens to a lot of people, right? And it's weird, nobody ever breaks it down and really talks about it. That's why I like to really break things down and kind of give the details of what I see, because it's just, we all kind of go based off of these weird assumptions that nobody fully understands, and then those assumptions can turn into weird social norms that, in my opinion, can turn into detriments for society that we're not aware of, and just behaviors that we decide to accept, kind of like boys will be boys, and it's like, oh, let's stop that. And let's talk about that, because women should be respected as women. How about that one? So, I'm sorry, I know my videos are a bit rambly, but this is what you get when you're going to watch a video of mine. I understand it's not for everybody. And I don't like to mention the comments much, but I've had a handful, and most of you are super nice, but I've had a handful that, have said stuff like, talk about yourself too much, stick to the subject. I'm like, you know what? I totally understand. I talk a lot about what I talk about. I have firsthand experience in, so I relate it to my experiences. If you're looking for a documentary that's just facts on the person, you're not going to get that from me. I'm going to give all kinds of information, and I'm going to talk a lot about my experiences. And I understand that's not for everybody, right? But there's just different styles. What is it? Different strokes for different folks. I always feel so weird when I say that one. I don't feel right. But okay, let's go into Kai. Kai was very young. Kai was not a fully developed person. And he got in there with a quickness, not just on marriage, but boom, then comes a baby. Very quickly. Kai has never had the time to really develop. Now, some things that I want to mention and I want to add. When it comes to them dating all these girls, and I kind of mentioned this with the victim villain video. When it comes to that, I want to explain some things that and go watch another video for detail. But I kind of wonder, a lot of people were kind of like, they gave Kai a lot of crap, and understandably so. Maybe Kai is the ringleader in all this because Kai's in on it. From all the reports we've heard, I think Kai is trying to cope, and I think Kai is trying to people please, because on some level she is terrified of her husband. Not to say that Kai doesn't love Kai's husband. I'm not saying Kai doesn't, I'm really trying, guys, I'm sorry. I really think Kai loves Kai's husband, right? And I really think Kai is trying, but I think Kai is very well aware of his situation. And I think Kai is doing everything Kai can to cope. And how do we know this? Well, we know this because when the first Billy thruple came up with Billy, Onision, and Kai, when that came up, tweets came out from Kai, and Kai had said, I never wanted this. This is what Onision was pushing for. This is what Onion wanted. I never wanted this. I was manipulated into it. And then shortly after, what we hear is the tweets are removed, and then we hear that on some level, Kai is kind of being punished because Kai is speaking too much. And Kai shouldn't be airing out all this information. And then Kai was made to look like a liar per Onision. I don't buy it, and I'll tell you why. I've had Onision types in my life that would do horrible things, and when I opened up and they found out that I opened up to somebody about it, because when physical horrible things would be done to me, I was not allowed to get therapy, get any help, or talk about it with anyone else. I was not allowed. In my situation was a bit different. There was a lot of spiritual, religious brainwashing. But that was also, during a time where I was, kind of in my new age phase, but kind of getting out of it. And it's weird, I say new age phase, I still have a lot of new age beliefs. It's just, there's a lot of them I don't like. There's so much BS, and there's so much awfulness in that movement as well. There's a lot of women take ultimate responsibility even if a guy hurts you. Well, what did you do to provoke it? There's a lot of victim shaming and victim blaming, and it's ripe for the P words, if that makes sense. And that happens quite often, and they blur the lines with everything, so there's a lot of narcissism and sociopathy. It's a lot of, well, if I'm just supposed to feel good all the time and everything is love and light, you are me and I am you and we're each other and we're constantly reflecting one thing out of the other from each other, then what you see in me is really in you and you don't like about yourself, and no judgment. And it just it basically is a get out of jail free card for everything you want. That movement drives me crazy. But to go back to this, so Kai said they didn't want to, right? And Onision made them take those tweets down and made them recant. I had that happen many times. And there were many friendships that were ruined, and people didn't know what to think of me. They didn't know if I was a liar. And so, and there weren't that many people I told. And a lot of it was as well, if you grew up in a bad home environment, depending on the situation, in my situation, I was taught to protect the people that were hurting me. And looking back, I understand why that happened. I understand why the adults were protecting the person that were hurting us. I understand the dynamic, but when you grow up that way, and I'm not saying that's how Kai grew up, honestly, we don't know, right? But when you grow up that way, it really messes with you. So I saw that as kind of a punishment for speaking too much and a manipulative tactic. So we already know that Kai has said, I didn't want a girlfriend. This wasn't my thing. This was him pushing it on me. Here's the other thing. Is Kai actually attracted to women? And here's the thing. I want to say, regardless of Onision, Kai can do whatever Kai wants to do or doesn't want to do. Kai could be attracted to women. Kai could want a relationship with a woman. More power to Kai. No big deal. That I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to give this ultimate understanding that this is or isn't, but I am going to give some perspectives. We know that Onion loves to have control and loves to defeminize and dehumanize his girlfriends. We have 2 accounts of this. On top, some of the things we just saw with Kai, which I pointed out. I'm sorry, I had to edit because, again, I'm trying so hard. It's really hard to do this video because my brain just isn't synced up to do this. So I'm really trying. Sorry for the edits. And then I kind of get off track a little bit. So we have Shiloh. Shiloh, who spoke out and said that, and anybody who was following at that time remembers at some point Shiloh just had a shaved head. And I don't think a lot of people thought too much of it necessarily, but what we found out was that was Greg. It was Onision. He shaved her head. She didn't want it to happen. And then he said some real weird sentence like, now you're my little boy, or now you're mine, like I have control over you. And he loved the fact that he was taking away her femininity and being able to control her. And it was a controlling tactic. And she said she just felt humiliated and dehumanized. Now, it would be one thing if it were just one account, right? But then we have Billy, and I remember this very specifically, and it seems like a lot of people forget this. So Billy had taken a medicinal herb. By the way, when I speak very roundabout, it's because YouTube gets mad at certain things I say. This is not because I have some weird way of speaking. I absolutely hate the way I have to talk, but I'm trying to be respectful with YouTube's rules. Billy has a lot of anxiety, took a medicinal herb for that. And that's a medicinal herb that, Onision is very against for whatever his reasons. And as a result of that, they got very mad because I guess she promised she wouldn't do it and she did. So therefore she lies. And so they said for her to be able to be welcomed back into their thruple situation, he made a contract. And in this contract, there were a few things Billy had to do. First of all, she had to be chained up by her neck for a week in their basement. They get to shave her head, tattoo I'm a liar on her lower back right above her bottom, dye her skin orange, and then dye the top of her head green. This is a girl that already suffers from anxiety. Then to top all that off, if that's not fun enough, guess what? We have 14-year-old Sarah in the house, and we have a child and a toddler who get to watch all of this happen. That's why, guys, if you want to know why I made so many videos about the situation, that was why. I was like, wow, these children and a very young teenager are being exposed to all of this. All while in the background, there were these tones of flirtation between Sarah and the rest of them. Like, I saw through when Onision was being so mean to Sarah. And I've wondered if I should talk about this. It's hard because I don't think the girls want to be brought up. So out of respect for them, I kind of don't want to. But at the same time, it's kind of already out there. And I think these are good educational tools. But you would see him be very, he would single her out to be mean to her in videos. And I was like, I see what you're doing. You're setting the stage to make it look like, well, I didn't like her. I wasn't even a big fan of her anyways, when you end up coming on to her. I saw that years ago. I've seen men do that dynamic. They, when they really want something physically, they become the bully. It's just like kindergarten, right? When they talk about when you're a little girl in kindergarten and some little boy is being mean to you and pushes you down on the playground. It's like, oh, I think he likes you. Maybe teach him better ways of dealing with that. Again, boys will be boys. I hate this, guys. The older I get, the more I understand how unfair things are for women and minorities. And I was really naive to it for a really long time. I really, really was. And it's embarrassing that I was. But so we also know that Onision vehemently, for a very long time, he very much denied just transgenderism as a whole. I don't know if you guys remember this, but he very much denied this, saying, if you're a guy, you're a guy. If you're a girl, you're a guy. And he was really, really big into this. And look, like, I know people have different thoughts about this. To me, as long as we're all respectful with everybody, whatever. And I'm hoping science over time will catch up so we all know what's going on, right? And I think that it's great that we are more accepting of people just wanting to be who they are, but I also think there are certain issues, right? Like, one issue I have is that what are the long-term studies and what are the long-term effects of people who go on hormones and have the surgeries, and the surgeries aren't safe. Any surgery isn't safe for a person. And to push that on children, I do have a concern about an expensive surgery that could mess up your health when you're still developing. But those aren't about, still be you. Do whatever feels right for you. I'm more come from the angle of trying to protect somebody's health. That's how I look at something. But I also think people should be allowed to do what they want within reason, right? So I'm not telling anybody not to do what you want to do. I'm saying I can see both sides of an argument there. And then there are just some people who are just mean and set in their ways, right? That obviously we have tons of that. That's why the R word still happens. So, I get it. But we know that he has this penchant for this, and he was so against it, right? So super, and when I say against, he was really big into that. But then we would see these weird behaviors. So he would really fawn over Andy Biersack. Y'all remember that? And here's kind of the conclusion that I've come to, because now he's come out and said over time, Onision has said he's attracted to men. Here's my question. Is it possible that Kai has been pushed and manipulated by Greg to become transgender? I'm not saying that's the case, but I think it's a question we should ask, because let's look at it. Kai presented very female when they first met, and now has super short hair. By the way, have your hair however you want. Kai can have their hair however they want. Not saying they can't. What I am saying, though, is that knowing that Onion has a penchant for shaven heads, do you see what I'm saying? And defeminizing women. There's also some information coming out scientifically that and this is the thing. Now, I'm going to speak from science, not speaking from personal opinion, but science for a long time has said people who have these gender issues, it's a form of gender dysmorphia or dysphoria. And as a result of that, that can be classified as a mental illness. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just speaking from what science has said, right? So, as a result of all of that, there's also a lot of talk that now, even though EDs, please infer, like Eugenia Cooney, that situation is still rampant among girls and boys. I'd say more girls because our bodies are a bit different, but it can happen to guys too, especially young ones, that they're seeing more and more that this also will tie in to people having some gender identity and gender issues. And it seems like sometimes people kind of swap one for the other. And we know that with Kai had some Anna tendencies, some pro-Anna tendencies, and some posts, and like that was something that was very much looked at, very debated, and I believe Kai has been really open with that. Now, it would make sense, though, if you're going through that. It would make sense having body issues on a couple different spectrums would go hand in hand, but what we're seeing and hearing more is that a lot of people are going to the gender issues, and it's the same, it's the same expression as the eating issues, like they go from one to the other. So considering that Kai has said they only want a relationship with Onion, and Onion has been doing all this pushing and forcing, and we know in his other relationships, he tries to push and force to control and dehumanize and defeminize those girls, that he was so acting anti-trans for so long, and then did a 180 and said I'm attracted to men. And here's another part that I think is very interesting. We know from what Sarah has said. Sarah has said that Onion has opened up and said, I don't think I know what love is. I don't really know what love is. I just know what being physical is. Or something to that degree. A lot of men like that, you've got to be super careful with. Super, super careful with. Because what they will end up doing is they will give all of the appearance and actions of the feelings of being in love, that's not really what they're feeling. They're feeling infatuation and the excitement of the physical attraction. And because they're not fulfilling things in themselves, they're not developing themselves to be able to get that true intimacy and true feeling for somebody. And the problem is, though, that fun and excitement fades away, and then you can be discarded. Yet, you also want that narcissistic supply of somebody to consistently have around to use at your whim, and also men, I've learned every man is different with this. Their physical instincts to do those sort of things are going to be different, but some men need that once or twice a day, and maybe they want to make sure to have somebody around to use that. And I feel like Kai has just become a pawn for Onion in that regard. And so I think knowing that Kai, didn't want a relationship, right? Knowing that Kai didn't want that, but then continuing to see relationships come in and out of their situation and people coming in and out. How far has the manipulation gone? One more thing that I want to bring up. Is it possible that going through the gender issues is Kai's way of growing up? Let me explain. Kai has never been allowed to become a functioning, independent, adult, mature person because they've always been under the thumb of Onion. In the other video, I talk about why Kai might never leave. And I go into the fact that, you can go look at the video for details, but that, with all the things that Onion has pushed her to do, Onion is going to make sure he doesn't leave a paper trail, and he'll manipulate the people to get rid of evidence. But he probably has some stuff on Kai, just in case Kai ever steps out of line. And then Kai can lose the kids and lose this, and he's the one with the money and the power. There's, again, the power dynamic. And on top of that, we know Kai has severe anxiety. Now, I don't say this, I say this with compassion. A lot of young women have severe anxiety. Severe anxiety when you're in a society that is do or die. Severe anxiety and trying to figure out the world when you're young, in a society that will let poverty go rampant. Doesn't that sound normal? On top of that, it's not easy to be a teenager, especially in the digital age. My goodness, in the social media age. I can't imagine having social media the way we do now and being in school. What a nightmare. So there's all types of things and all types of, in my opinion, dynamics going on with people and going on with young people with that. I don't think Kai was ever allowed to develop. I think Kai's done the best they can, but considering Kai has a lot of anxiety, I think a lot of that anxiety comes from, and I don't know, and by the way, I'm not saying I know all the anxiety issues, not saying that. I'm sure there's tons of stuff I don't know, but I think it comes from living with that guy. And I also think it comes from, there's a part of Kai that wants to break out and break free. And think about it. If Kai has to consistently play this submissive role in Kai's relationship with Onision and has to go with what Onision wants to do and, do things that they don't like, maybe on some level, taking on this new role as kind of a male in the gender issue is all about trying to find power in Kai's self and grow up. And by the way, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I would think it could be a combination of Kai might just have these gender issues and it's also a coping mechanism. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years, Kai finally gets the nerve to leave and a lot of stuff comes out. And here's the thing I want to make sure comes across. I don't have any ill will or anything will for Kai or for Onision, no matter what my opinion is of Onision. And y'all know I have many. Sorry, my hair's getting really staticky as I'm talking. I need to figure something out. Sound off in the comments. Some people said hairspray, but I don't really like hairspray. And it kind of makes me feel weird. So I'm better with certain things. I can wear body sprays now. Couldn't for a few years because I'd have such bad asthma reactions. But certain things like hairsprays will kind of make me feel choked. So sound off if you have any good tips. I could just Google them anyway. I lost my place because my filming had just stopped. I don't wish ill for any of these people. And y'all know me. It's not like I'm a fan of Onion, but I really just wish the best for everybody. My concern with this situation, the continued situation with him, is he's still on social media. It's so funny. He says he doesn't care what anybody thinks and we're all beneath him and horrible and stupid. And yet he's constantly screaming of his innocence. If you didn't care what anybody thought, why are you screaming about your innocence? I always think the majority of people who say, I don't care what people think, I understand having a thicker skin, doing what you need to do regardless of what people are going to think or say. But everybody deep down at the end of the day, everybody wants love. Everybody wants to be loved on some level. I do. I think that's kind of BS, and it's funny that you can kind of see that come out of him. But he still doesn't understand what he's done, guys. He's still going on. Everything I did was legal, was legal, was legal, was legal. Well, number one, that's questionable. The problem is, are we ever going to get anybody to look into this and take it seriously? I think a lot of people thought Chris Hansen was going to be the one to take the torch and run with it, and we've seen, unfortunately, what's happened with that. Also, guys, apparently there's like a documentary coming out about all this. Any of y'all heard of this? So, like I said, I'm kind of jumping back in the game a little bit, but I wanted to bring this up to see what you guys think. And again, I have all the respect in the world for the LGBT. T, right, is trans, right? Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, right? So I have all the respect in the world for whatever you choose to be and whatever you choose to do. I truly, truly do. Live your best, most authentic self. As long as you're not hurting yourself or other people, do you, boo, whatever that means. And I feel the same way towards Kai. But we know the type of person she's around, but we know the type of person that he's around and the environment that Kai continues to be in. Had to edit again. I'm trying, guys. We know what that is. And as a result of knowing several things about this situation, I just really wonder at this point if a lot of what we see are coping mechanisms. And you know what? I think Kai is aware of some of these, some of what I'm saying. And I'll tell you another hint that I remember. So I remember when it came to Billy and Onion sleeping together and Kai being very upset and then they almost breaking up and she going home. You know, Kai had gone to Billy and said, don't sleep with him, even if he tells you to. I don't want you to. Don't do it. Don't do it. Then here comes Onion to Billy. No, we can do this. It's fine. Kai's totally okay with it and manipulates her into sleeping with him. And then Kai was very upset and was done with the situation. But then Kai later changed script. I think we get to see glimmers of who the real Kai is. I don't think we know who the real Kai. I bet Kai doesn't fully know the real Kai. But I really wonder if some of what we're seeing is a result of just trying to cope in this situation. If you were to ask, do I think Kai would ever leave? I think it would have to be in a position where Kai knows they might have some type of upper hand or power in the situation. So I think that if something legally or criminally were to happen to Onion, where she could spill everything and kind of get be let off, or something to that degree, I think he might definitely do that. I think it just depends, right? It just depends on the situation. So, I kind of wonder for Kai how much is too much. By the way, a lot of you are asking me to cover and talk about there was a kid out of a window, and I feel like I've heard a little bit about this. I don't know, like, on the one hand, I feel like this is an interesting topic, and this is a great educational topic to talk about to young people, because I don't want them going into the same situations many of us have had to go into. But on the other hand, it's also it's not a very fun topic. And I've gotten a lot of crap for covering this before, even though I was right about what I talked about. It was really validating to be right about all that and show people I really, regardless of what you think about me, I made as many videos as I did because I was concerned. And then it's funny because once I became trendy, everybody made the kind of videos in the same amount that I did, and it was fine. I guess it was the head of the curve. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just a turd. Who knows? But I just wanted to go into this because I think it's an interesting debate. And I'm curious what you guys think. Do you think that there's something to what I'm saying? Do you think I'm completely off? And I'm going to say again, I'm really praying that everybody that you feel that my intention is good. I'm really trying with the pronouns, and I'm not trying to disrespect Kai whatsoever. Kai can be whoever Kai wants to be. Kai wants to go back to this person or stay this person or change this person. I don't care. That's their business. They have every right to do that, just as you have every right to present yourself or be whoever you feel to be. I really hope that's coming across. I just know the toxicity that's there, and we've heard so many stories. This is the other thing that we can't negate. How many people come out on YouTube and say, I'm detransitioning? And then they say, I realize I decided to change genders because I wasn't dealing with trauma, because I was trying to get strength in myself and do it this way. We've heard all of those stories, and I think those stories are just as valid as the ones who transition and stay that way. Because shouldn't we be armed with as much physical and psychological information about these types of things, especially if you're somebody who's thinking about doing a transition physically? I think it's important. I think both of these topics are important, and I think everybody, no matter if you're transition, you're detransition, you're none of those things, you're somewhere on the spectrum, I think everybody deserves love and respect. And that's what I'm going to say. Okay guys, if you like this video, please help me out and support my channel and give me a big thumbs up. Like the video, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and hit that notification bell so you can see more videos like this. Also guys, sound off in the comment section what you think. I would love to hear what you have to say. Let's all do our best to be respectful in this situation, especially to Kai. And by the way, I also want to make sure and say, if Kai did something wrong, Kai should be held accountable. I'm not saying otherwise, but I do think we should keep in mind, because at the end of the day in this debate, I think she's both villain and victim. I would say maybe 30% villain, 70% victim. That's how I would look at it. I feel like we have to remember she is also still in the thick of it. And you might think, yeah, but she's been with him so long. Guys, I'm 36. I'm still uncovering some of this stuff. It took me 10 years to really leave my bad relationship. And there was another bad relationship it was relationship turned into friendship. And that one took a good 13 years to really figure out what was going on and how bad it was. This stuff takes time, especially if you're a woman, and we don't have a society that really supports women uncovering things about themselves. Do you know what I mean? It takes time, and therapy I love when everybody's like, you need to go get therapy and help. And I'm like, I feel like that's a disrespectful thing to say to somebody, because, well, number one, a lot of people say it in kind of like an attacking context. Now, if you're just genuinely needing help, that's more power to you. But number two, like, a lot of people just can't afford that right now. Like I've said, if I can get enough money, I want to be able to get a house, get on my own, help roommate in whatever way that I can, go on with their lives. And I want to do counseling, a good therapy session 2 or 3 times a week. In my case, I have to find the right person. I got to find somebody who understands the stuff I've been through, who understands the kind of things that I would go through with a platform like YouTube, and then would understand chronic illness issues. I feel like that would be a unicorn of a therapist, but can't afford that right now, and that's okay. You just do the best you can, and you try to work on yourself as you can, right? So anyway, let me know what you guys think, and otherwise, I'm going to go and live my life and do my day. Take care, guys. Blessings. Until the next video, I'm wishing everybody love and giving y'all hugs and kisses.